Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, September 29th. And just a quick summary of the indices, which I have on the top left of my spreadsheet. You can see that there's a little bit of selling going on today, kind of a choppy market. I think this is somewhat expected after a couple days of nice little rally from where we were in the middle of last week. I caught a little bit of back and filling today, but you could see SPY was down 0.5% today. Qs were down 40%. It's not 40%. That would be really bad. Qs were down 0.4% today, so almost 0.5%. Small caps down about the same. You could see there was all, a little bit of, sellers were in control today, a little bit of selling after the open as well. Name groups that did very well today, again, the solar, anything having to do with clean energy and clean energy technology seems to do pretty well today, although I think Tesla was kind of left out of the rally in that group today, but super, super strong. We'll go over those charts in a minute, but you could see that the breadth was a bit negative today by the number of names, number of groups that were, down over 1% today after the open. So again, a little bit of selling pressure. Again, the names that were strong, a few areas that were strong yesterday, a few of the value areas. It's interesting that they just continue to give it back. We talked about this a little bit in the trading room, that I think when a decent trade, if you're looking to short, is, whenever the banks are up, I think it's a good, place to kind of fade. We just don't see a lot of continuation when those groups are up. They end up being pretty decent fade trade. So yeah, once again, energy, the banks down. Home builders were also down, and they were pretty strong yesterday. So that's the performance. Solar, I mentioned solar and clean energy continue their hot pace. If we look at let's do this backwards. Oh, I always like to look at the overall, the bigger picture first, and then kind of draw in. We're going to do this opposite today, and we're going to just look at the 5-minute bar. You could tell that, when we see big red bars like this, there was some selling present. There was a couple headlines too, a couple COVID headlines that moved the market a bit. There was one on Germany in particular. There was a couple on New York as well. And, for now, it seems like the market is going to pay attention to those headlines and move a little bit. But yeah, when we see something like this where there's just a lot of red bars, full body, candle, not much of a wick on these red bars. It just kind of felt like the sellers were in control for the day. Also, the 5-minute value area for the day giving us some good clues. We kind of hit that top of value even in the pre-market and couldn't really get out of there. We also try to rally back here about 11:35. Market didn't want any part of it. And then, we did see a little bit of strength on this bar, but, very little follow through, and then it moved down at the end of the day. One thing I noticed was that the Qs were a little bit weaker today. They did hold the day's lows, but they certainly tested them a couple times. Specifically, right around 3:32 was the last test, and like I said, they did hold, but not much of a bounce back here either. So where does this kind of leave the market for tomorrow? Well, if you look at the 1 hour, I don't think it's much of anything so far, right? If we look at the Qs first, like I said, we'll do this backwards, kind of looking at the short time frame first, just to see what in terms of what kind of glimpse, what the market did for the day. But then if we zoom out a little bit and look at the 1 hour, this is kind of, if you remember what I said in yesterday's video, that on the 1 hour we were a bit overbought. Well, we're not overbought anymore. We kind of burned off those levels and retraced a little bit of yesterday's move. So I think that's quite normal, and might set up a good, rest of the week in terms of trading. And if we look at S&P futures, kind of the same thing. There's that 33.73 VPOC that I talked about yesterday, but I said we don't have to get there in a straight line. So we'll see. We do have to kind of turn the corner back up. But I think for now, we've made this nice move from the lows. Retracing a little bit of yesterday's move isn't the end of the world. And if we kind of come in a little bit further in the overnight session, this would be kind of your area of support. But for now, I think there's nothing too bad about this. We do have a debate tonight, but my gut feeling is I don't think this really changes anything. One debate. I know that there's some angst over that. I'm more worried about the Yankees game tonight than I am about what they're going to say in the debate. Yankees play Cleveland tonight. Again, my focus will be more on that. I think if you've been trading for a while, you kind of get used to these types of, these things are a little bit of distractions. But overall, I think just life goes on. That's my opinion. You could hate me for that, but I think that stocks will be able to get through this. I think we will have a decent amount of chop, where we're going to do kind of things like we did today, right? Where yesterday we had a nice day rally, and then, we're going to retrace, 2 steps forward, kind of 1 step back. I think that's what it's going to be like, for the next couple weeks, but that's just my a guess, right? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but just using a little bit of experience, that's what I would kind of guess that goes on. But we'll continue to kind of trade what's in front of us. Today, things that were kind of hot. So let's talk about the two hottest areas of the market right now, or they're kind of one and the same. But this is solar. Um, Tremendous, right? I've been talking about solar, throughout the year, and I remain in the solar ETF, and I got long a little bit of ENPH yesterday, which worked. I traded SPWR yesterday. Today, I traded, and if we look at the other ETF, which is PBW, which is also very strong, this is the Clean Energy ETF. Very interesting ETF. But, I started to kind of go through some charts the last couple days, and I was looking at this NEO. Now, this also was helped by an analyst note, but this worked really well. Somebody asked me in the trading room today, like, why do you think it goes today? I don't. I never, we really don't know when things are going to, when there's a big, we don't know when there's a whole bunch of volume that's going to come in and lift the stock, but I do know levels to trade against, right? I think that's really kind of the separation. I think if you have been trading for a while and you develop a system, for me, my system is, based on a lot of short-term support and resistance. And once we move out of a resistance area, then I think we've got something. And if it doesn't work, like if we didn't get the volume, then I know where to take the trade off where it's a paper cut. So that's what I was willing to do today. But I waited until my trigger, went off, and I talked about this. This was the chart of the day that I sent out by email every morning. Around 8 o'clock, I send out S&P levels that I think are notable, as well as chart of the day. I usually start with a sector, and then I talk about an individual name. But yeah, this was our name of the day, and I did tweet this out last night too. I thought that this name was getting pretty close, right? And I like when things, really what I'm doing is I'm lining things up on multiple time frames. So I'll give you a couple examples of things that are not there yet, but I took a couple targets in this one. I lined them up, based on the market webs, and then of course, the last like third of the position, I want to hold it, and I want to hold it for a breakout, right? And then we can kind of also, if it back and fills a little bit, we can do some things like, add a little bit of calls here and there. But, this was a nice setup. Also, this LI, which is also another China name. It's a newer name. It's a name that I've been watching, over the last couple of weeks. We did see some call activity like back in here, but we did see that, there was a decent amount of calls that went up today. And you could see what this thing is. LI, whoops. But again, nice call activity in this one. This is, it doesn't give you much of a description. So you have to kind of size these China names that are a little bit more risky, I believe, because you just don't have that much information about them. So you have to size them appropriately. But this isn't another. It's another electric sport utility. They sell smart electric sport utility vehicles. So that's all the information that we have, and the rest is in the chart and how you're going to manage the trade. But this was nice. A nice little trade for me today too. So there was some nice momentum in some things today, right? So I took a target in ENPH from yesterday. I tried Fastly today too, but it just didn't catch any of the momentum that I was looking for. So just like I said, I'm looking for a break, break out of resistance. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, they lack momentum. Fastly lacked momentum to it, even though it had some momentum and volume early on. It kind of dried up, and I did force one target. I was looking for, I think, oh, look at this, it actually checked back to, so we'll see what this does tomorrow. But I was looking for 100. It just didn't get there. It didn't have enough power to get up there. That would have been would have made my day if it did, but it didn't, and stalled out there. So watch 93 for tomorrow. But overall, not the best. Sorry, there's a Moderna headline out as well. There's a lot of headlines out after the close today. Uh, but yeah, so this check back here. Again, I always go through all my trades with you guys. Peloton, which was a small trade from last week. I tried trading a little bit of PayPal today too. A lot of the names that I went over on Twitter, last night. I put out a bunch of charts on Twitter. PayPal's, one of my favorite names of all time to kind of trade. So I was kind of waiting for a setup. It's now back inside value. I started trading options in this one, and I just didn't want to be in short-term options, so I switched to stock in this one. Again, there's a lot of things that you could do. I think a lot of traders, from what I see on uh, on Twitter, it seems like they only trade options. I don't really understand. And they also, it seems a lot of traders don't know how to hedge options either, which is mind blowing to me, but that's another story. In my opinion, you have to know how to, you could use all these tools that are available to you. So if you don't want that short term exposure, volatile exposure, you switch to stock, which is basically what I did in this particular name. And, and that's it. But trying to keep, trying to kind of slim down trading a little bit here and just focus on the positive setups. Nvidia was another one. Again, one of these things too that I think it's important to take targets. I took a target at 530. Yes, I'm going for 543, but I don't know if it's certainly going to get there to 543. So you take targets along the way. Make sure that you lock some in, and then you play the last piece for a big winner. This was a name that we talked about in Friday's video. So working pretty well. Up another $7 today. I'll take it. So that's Nvidia. What else was I going to talk about? Yeah, like a couple. So here's a couple other setups too that just kind of will shed light on how I trade a little bit. Tesla. So I mentioned Tesla really didn't participate in that clean energy, which I do view Tesla as a clean energy name, and I think they are in that ETF that I mentioned, PBW. But they're kind of, they've made a nice move from the lows, so they're kind of, digesting, I guess, some of the days or last couple of days of gains, but they're right at this pivot point. And what gets more interesting, so you got like I've got a little bit of a downtrend line that I'm looking for this thing to break through, which is right around 428. When we go to the 1 hour as well, I'm also looking for a break of 428, which is the top of value for the week. All right, so that's a nice resistance level. So I'm not doing anything in this name until I get confirmation that it breaks. I usually go up a little higher than the resistance level itself. So 429, 430, and that's what I'm looking for that. And so once we kind of get out of these value areas, will basically are telling you where the majority of the volume and price action occurred in the last period, which is last week, right? So this value area is based on last week's price action, which becomes very significant, right? So if we can get out of this range, I like to look for the path of least resistance, getting out of a consolidation area. So we're in price discovery for the week if we can get above 428, and that's what I'm looking for. Another name that also I have on my radar, which hasn't done much, is this DocuSign, right? I call it Docu because that's the symbol. But notice it hasn't triggered yet. So you have to be patient, right? And let these things, don't force trades, trade on a signal. So I'm looking, for 219. What has me interested in this name? Well, it had good earnings. It just ran like crazy into the earnings. Uh, and it's had some time now to consolidate, and I think it's a strong name, but I think it's just spending it's taking its own time with getting out of value. So yes, I'm looking for a break of 219 in Docu. Nothing to do in either one of those names until you get a signal. All right, guys, that's it for today, and look forward to trading with you guys tomorrow.